Imagine waking before sunrise. The room is dark. The fire has almost gone out. Cold air slowly moves through the wooden walls of the house. Somewhere beside you, someone is still sleeping. You hear quiet breathing. You hear the soft crackle of dying embers. And beyond the walls, you can hear the sea. You are not in the modern world anymore. There is no electricity. No phone. No traffic. No warm shower waiting for you. You are living more than 1,000 years ago. You are living in the Viking Age. And tonight, we are going to discover what that life was really like. Not the Viking life shown in movies. Not endless battles. Not constant adventures. But the ordinary life of farmers, fishermen, craftsmen, parents, children, sailors, and families. People who woke before sunrise. People who worked with their hands. People who depended on the weather. People who feared the coming winter. And people who, after a long day, simply wanted a warm place beside the fire. So tonight, let the modern world become quiet. Let the sound of traffic disappear. Let the bright lights fade. And imagine a small Viking settlement beside a cold northern sea. The sky is still dark. The village is sleeping. And somewhere inside one wooden longhouse, the Viking day is about to begin. Slowly, the darkness begins to disappear. A faint grey light enters through the small openings in the wooden walls. Morning has arrived. But there is no alarm clock. No sudden electronic sound. No bright screen. Instead, the people inside the longhouse wake naturally. The fire has burned low during the night. Someone reaches toward the ashes. A few pieces of wood are added. A small flame appears. Then another. Soon, the fire begins to glow again. Smoke rises toward the roof. The house slowly becomes warmer. The longhouse is a simple place. But it is more than a bedroom. It is a home. A kitchen. A workshop. A gathering place. And sometimes a shelter for animals. People live close together. There is little privacy. The sounds of everyday life are always nearby. Someone is preparing food. Someone is moving a wooden container. Someone is repairing clothing. A child is beginning to wake. And outside, the settlement is slowly coming alive. There are animals to feed. Water to collect. Tools to prepare. Fields to inspect. Boats to check. The Viking day does not begin with entertainment. It begins with responsibility. There is always something that needs to be done. And so, as the sun slowly rises above the northern horizon, another ordinary Viking day begins. The Viking longhouse is quiet now. The fire burns steadily. Warmth spreads slowly through the room. You look around. The walls are made from wood. The roof is designed to protect the people inside from wind, rain, and snow. There are no glass windows. There are no electric lights. The fire is one of the most important things in the entire house. Without it, the darkness would be complete. Without it, winter would be much harder. The fire provides warmth. It provides light. And it allows food to be cooked. People gather around it throughout the day. The longhouse can be surprisingly busy. Someone may be preparing food. Another person may be working with wool. Someone else may be repairing a tool. Children may be nearby. An animal may make a quiet sound from the other side of the building. There is always movement. Always a smell. Always some small sound. Smoke. wood, food, wool, damp earth, human voices, and sometimes the smell of animals. To a modern person, the environment might seem uncomfortable. But to the people living there, it is simply home. This is where they eat. This is where they work. This is where they tell stories. This is where they sleep. And this is where families spend much of their lives. Outside, the morning light grows brighter. Inside, the fire continues to burn. And another day of Viking life is waiting. Morning food is simple. There is no refrigerator. No supermarket. No packaged breakfast. No fresh food delivered to the door. Everything depends on what the household has stored or produced. Perhaps there is porridge. Perhaps some bread. Perhaps milk or cheese. Perhaps dried fish. Perhaps meat. Perhaps berries collected during warmer months. The exact meal depends on the season and on the wealth of the household. Food is precious. Nothing should be wasted. A family cannot simply drive to a store if the food runs out. They must plan. They must preserve. They must store. During the warmer months, people prepare for winter. Grain is collected. Fish is dried. Meat is preserved. Animals are cared for. Everything possible is prepared for the cold months ahead. Winter is always somewhere in the back of the mind. Even during summer, people know that winter will return. So a simple bowl of warm food can mean much more than breakfast. It can mean survival. Imagine holding the warm bowl in your hands. Steam rises slowly. The fire crackles nearby. Outside, the morning air is cold. You take a slow breath. There is no need to hurry. For a few moments, you simply sit beside the fire. Warm food. Warm hands. Quiet voices. And the beginning of another ancient day. Most Vikings were not sailing across the ocean every day. Most were living ordinary lives. And much of that life revolved around farming. The fields needed attention. Animals needed food. Fences needed repairs. Wood needed collecting. Tools needed maintaining. The work was physical. There were no tractors. No electric machines. No modern equipment. A person could spend hours doing a task that a modern machine might complete in minutes. The seasons controlled everything. Spring meant preparation. Summer meant long days. Autumn meant harvesting. Winter meant waiting. A farmer needed to understand the land, the weather, the animals, and the changing seasons. A bad harvest could cause serious problems. Too little rain could damage crops. Too much rain could also cause problems. A harsh winter could destroy animals. And a long period of poor weather could make food difficult to obtain. So Viking farmers had to be practical. They had to plan ahead. They had to use what they had. And they had to work together. Imagine walking across a Viking field in the early morning. The grass is wet. The air is cool. Mist hangs close to the ground. Mist hangs close to the ground. In the distance, you can see the wooden houses. Smoke rises slowly from their roofs. Everything is quiet. Then you hear an animal. A bird. The wind. And the distant sound of someone beginning another day's work. Animals were extremely important to Viking families. Cattle could provide milk. Sheep could provide wool. Goats could provide milk and meat. Horses could help with transportation and farming. Pigs could provide meat. Even smaller animals could provide useful resources. Every animal required care. They needed food. They needed shelter. They needed protection. And during winter, keeping animals alive could become especially difficult. A family could not simply buy new animals whenever one died. Animals represented wealth. They represented food. They represented materials. And sometimes they represented transportation. So the daily routine included caring for them. Someone had to feed them. Someone had to check them. Someone had to clean their shelter. Someone had to protect them from danger. This work might seem ordinary, but ordinary work kept the entire household alive. The Viking world was built from thousands of small tasks. Carry the water. Feed the animals. Repair the fence. Fix the roof. Prepare the food. Gather the wood. Repair the boat. Make the clothing. Again. And again. And again. There was no shortcut. There was only the work. And when the work was finally finished, there was the fire, the warm house, the evening meal, and a few quiet hours before sleep. The northern climate could be unforgiving. Cold wind, rain, snow, long winter nights, and people had to live without modern clothing. There were no waterproof jackets. No synthetic thermal layers. No heated gloves. Instead, people relied on materials such as wool and linen. Wool was especially useful. It could provide warmth. It could be woven into fabric. And it could be used for many different kinds of clothing. Making clothing required time. Someone had to obtain the raw material. The fibers had to be prepared. They had to be spun. The thread had to be woven. And the finished material had to be turned into clothing. So clothing was valuable. A good garment was not something you casually threw away. It could be repaired, adjusted, reused, passed down, and carefully maintained. Imagine sitting near the fire. Your wool clothing surrounds you. The warmth slowly reaches your body. Outside, rain taps against the wooden walls. The wind moves through the darkness. Inside, everything is calm. The fire makes shadows dance across the walls. Someone quietly speaks nearby. A child is sleeping. The smell of smoke fills the air. And for a moment, the cold outside does not matter. You are warm. You are sheltered. And the long northern night is still ahead. Children were part of everyday Viking life. They grew up surrounded by work. There was no clear separation between childhood and adult responsibility in the modern sense. Children watched. They listened. They copied. And gradually, they learned. A child might learn how to care for animals, how to collect wood, how to help prepare food, how to work with simple tools, how to recognize useful plants, how to behave around boats and animals. Knowledge was often passed from one generation to another. Parents taught children. Older siblings taught younger ones. And communities shared practical knowledge. There were stories too. Stories about ancestors, heroes, gods, monsters, strangers, travelers, and distant lands. Imagine a child sitting beside the fire. The room is dark. The flames are glowing. An older person is speaking slowly. The child listens. Outside, the wind is moving through the settlement. The story continues. Perhaps it is about a journey. Perhaps it is about a great warrior. Perhaps it is simply a story that has been told many times before. The child does not have a television. There is no phone. There is no internet. There is only the voice, the fire, and the imagination. The story becomes part of memory. And years later, that same child may tell the story to someone else. Now walk toward the shore. The morning is cold. Your feet move across damp ground. Ahead of you, a Viking ship rests beside the water. The wooden hull is long and narrow. The ship looks simple, but it represents extraordinary skill. The sea is important to the Viking world. It provides food. It connects communities. It allows people to travel. And sometimes, it carries people toward unknown places. But the sea is dangerous. There is no modern navigation system. No GPS. No weather application. No emergency rescue service. A sailor depends on experience. The wind. The waves. The coastline. The sky. The position of the sun. And knowledge passed down by other sailors. When the weather is calm, the sea can feel peaceful. The ship moves gently across the water. The wooden hull rises and falls with the waves. The sail catches the wind. The crew works together. But when the weather changes, everything can become dangerous. A storm can appear. Waves can rise. Visibility can disappear. The cold water waits below. And suddenly, the beautiful sea becomes a threat. Yet Viking sailors continued to travel. They learned the sea. They respected it. And they depended upon it. For them, the ocean was not simply an empty space. It was a road. A road made of water, leading toward another shore. The evening has become completely quiet now. Inside the longhouse, the fire continues to burn gently. Its warm light moves across the wooden walls, creating soft shadows that seem to breathe with the flames. Most of the day's work is finished. The animals are settled. The tools have been placed aside. Outside, the settlement is slowly disappearing beneath the darkness. But there is still one thing that makes the Viking night feel different from the nights we know today. The sky. Without electric lights, the darkness would have been enormous. If the clouds were clear, thousands of stars could appear above the settlement. The Milky Way would stretch across the sky like a pale river of light. People living in the Viking world would have known the night sky well. The stars were not simply beautiful. They could help travelers understand direction. They could become part of stories and beliefs. And for sailors crossing unfamiliar waters, the sky could become a quiet guide. Imagine stepping outside for a moment. The cold air touches your face. You look toward the sea. The village behind you is almost silent. Only a faint glow comes from the longhouse. Ahead, the water is dark. Above you, the stars are bright. There are no airplanes crossing the sky. No distant city lights. No glowing towers. Only darkness and stars. You breathe slowly. The air smells of salt and cold earth. A gentle wind moves across the grass. Then you hear the sea. One wave reaches the shore. Then another. Then another. The rhythm is slow. Almost like breathing. You stand there for a moment, listening. Perhaps someone inside calls your name softly. It is time to return to the warmth. You walk back toward the longhouse. The wooden door opens. Warm air touches your face. The fire is still glowing. Someone is quietly speaking. Someone else is already asleep. You return to your place beside the wall. The blanket is pulled around you. The fire makes one final soft crackle. Your eyes become heavier. The sounds around you slowly disappear. The Viking night continues. Quietly. Peacefully. Beneath the ancient northern sky. By now, the night has become deeper. The longhouse is almost completely silent. Only the fire remains awake. Every few moments, a small piece of wood shifts in the glowing embers, creating a soft crackling sound. The orange light moves gently across the walls before disappearing again into darkness. But while the people inside sleep, the world outside continues. The wind moves across the fields. The trees make a quiet rustling sound. And somewhere beyond the settlement, the sea continues its endless movement. For a Viking family, the sea was never very far away. Even when they were not sailing, it remained part of their lives. It provided fish. It connected them with distant communities. It carried travelers. It brought news. And sometimes, it brought danger. A boat could mean opportunity. A successful journey could bring back valuable goods, new knowledge, or stories from places that most people would never see. But a boat could also disappear beyond the horizon and never return. Imagine waking tomorrow and seeing a ship approaching the shore. You would not know who was aboard. Perhaps it would be a familiar trader. Perhaps it would be a traveler from another settlement. Perhaps the people aboard had crossed hundreds of miles of cold water. Everyone would watch the ship carefully. The sail would slowly become larger. The wooden hull would move closer. The boat would finally reach the shore. People would gather. Questions would begin. Where had they come from? What had they seen? What had they brought? In the Viking world, information traveled slowly. A stranger arriving by ship could bring stories from another place. A traveler might describe distant islands. Another might speak about foreign markets. Someone else might tell stories of storms encountered at sea. These stories became part of the community's knowledge. And sometimes, those stories inspired people to make their own journeys. But for now, the village is sleeping. The ship remains quiet near the shore. The moon moves slowly above the water. Inside the longhouse, the fire grows smaller. You pull the blanket closer. The wooden floor beneath you is hard. The air is cool. But you are sheltered. You listen to the wind. You listen to the sea. And slowly, the ancient world becomes quieter. And quieter. Until there is nothing left to hear except the gentle rhythm of the waves. Morning slowly returns to the Viking settlement. The darkness outside begins to turn grey, and the first pale light appears above the distant horizon. Inside the longhouse, the fire has become little more than a bed of glowing embers. Someone wakes and carefully adds another piece of wood. A small flame appears. Then another. Soon, the familiar warmth begins to return. This morning, there is work waiting near the shore. A fishing boat needs attention. For people living close to the sea, fishing can be an important part of everyday life. It is not a dramatic adventure every time. Often, it is simply work. The boat must be checked. The ropes must be examined. The nets must be repaired. The wooden hull must be inspected for damage. A small problem on land can become a serious problem once the boat is far from shore. So before leaving, everything must be prepared carefully. Imagine walking toward the water. The ground is cold beneath your feet. The morning air smells of salt. Mist floats just above the surface of the sea. The boat waits quietly beside the shore. You place your hand against the wooden side. The wood feels cold and slightly damp. There is no engine waiting to start. Instead, the boat depends on human strength and the wind. The oars are placed inside. The fishing equipment is prepared. A small amount of food is carried aboard. Then the boat begins to move. Slowly, the shoreline becomes farther away. The settlement grows smaller. The houses become little shapes in the distance. The sea stretches in every direction. For a moment, everything is peaceful. The oars move through the water. Dip. Pull. Rise. Dip. Pull. Rise. The rhythm is almost hypnotic. The sound of water against the wooden boat is gentle. The wind passes quietly across the surface. Above you, seabirds move through the morning sky. This is another side of Viking life. Not warriors. Not battles. Not legends. Just a person sitting in a wooden boat, waiting patiently for the sea to provide. Hours may pass like this. The world becomes simple. Water. Wind. Wood. Sky. And silence. As the boat continues across the calm northern sea, the rhythm of the oars becomes slower. The distant shore almost disappears. And for a little while, there is nowhere else to go. Nothing else to do. Only the quiet water beneath you. And the endless sky above. The evening settles over the Viking settlement. The last light disappears from the sky, and the air becomes colder. Inside the longhouse, the fire is burning again. People gather around it after a long day of work. Someone prepares the evening meal. Someone repairs a piece of clothing. Someone quietly cleans a fishing tool. There is no rush now. The difficult work of the day is finished. Outside, the animals are resting. The boats are quiet beside the shore. The fields are dark beneath the night sky. Inside, the fire provides a small circle of warmth. You sit close to it and listen. Someone begins telling a story. The voice is slow and calm. The story may be about an old ancestor, a distant journey, or a strange place beyond the sea. The children listen carefully. The adults listen too. For a little while, everyone forgets about tomorrow's work. The fire crackles. The storyteller continues. Outside, the wind moves gently against the walls. You feel the warmth on your face. Your body is tired from the day's work. Your eyes begin to feel heavy. The story becomes softer. The fire becomes quieter. And slowly, the Viking evening turns into night. You pull the blanket around yourself. The room is warm. The world outside is dark. There is nowhere you need to go. Nothing you need to finish. Only the quiet fire, the gentle wind, and the distant sound of the sea. You close your eyes, and slowly, you begin to drift into sleep. The night grows colder. Inside the longhouse, the fire has burned down to a soft orange glow. Most people are already asleep. You can hear only the quiet breathing of those nearby and the occasional crackle of the fire. But before sleep completely takes you, imagine what tomorrow might bring. Perhaps another day on the farm. Perhaps another trip toward the sea. Perhaps repairs around the house. For the Vikings, tomorrow was rarely certain. Life depended on weather, food, animals, and the changing seasons. Yet there was comfort in routine. The same fire would be lit again. The same fields would be visited. The same animals would need care. The same sea would continue moving beside the settlement. People lived one day at a time. They worked when there was work to do. They rested when the work was finished. And at night, they gathered close to the warmth. You listen to the wind outside. It moves slowly across the wooden walls. The fire gives one final quiet crackle. You pull the blanket closer. The room feels peaceful now. The darkness surrounds the longhouse. Outside, the stars remain above the sleeping settlement. The sea continues its endless rhythm. One wave reaches the shore. Then another. Then another. Your breathing becomes slower. Your eyes become heavier. There is nothing left to think about. The fields can wait until morning. The boats can wait. The animals can wait. For tonight, everything is quiet. The Viking settlement sleeps beneath the northern sky. And you can simply rest, listening to the distant sea. Until sleep finally arrives, morning comes quietly once again. A pale light slowly spreads across the horizon, touching the rooftops and the quiet fields. Inside the longhouse, the fire is almost gone. Someone wakes and carefully adds a few pieces of wood. Soon, a small flame appears. The warmth returns. Outside, the settlement begins another day. But today, the weather has changed. A cold wind is moving in from the sea. The sky is covered with thick grey clouds. People notice it immediately. In the Viking world, weather was never something you could simply ignore. It could change the plans of an entire community. A fisherman might decide not to sail. A farmer might hurry to protect something from the rain. Someone repairing a roof might work faster. The sea looks darker now. Waves move against the shore with greater force. You stand near the water and feel the wind against your face. The cold air makes you pull your clothing tighter. A boat that looked peaceful yesterday now seems much smaller. The people who live here understand the signs. They have learned to watch the sky. They know that a calm morning can become dangerous. So the boats remain close to shore. There is no reason to take unnecessary risks. Instead, people return to their daily work. Inside the longhouse, someone prepares food. Another person works with wool. A craftsman continues repairing a wooden object. The sound of tools mixes with the sound of the wind. Outside, rain begins to fall. At first, only a few drops. Then more. The wooden walls protect the people inside. The fire becomes more important. Everyone gathers closer to the warmth. The storm continues outside. But inside, there is shelter. There is food. There is fire. And there are familiar voices. You sit quietly near the flames. Rain taps against the roof. The wind moves around the house. The fire crackles softly. And gradually, the storm becomes almost comforting. You close your eyes. You listen to the rain. You listen to the fire. And you realize that even in the harsh Viking world, there were moments of warmth and peace. Moments when the outside world could simply remain outside. While you rested safely beside the fire, the rain continues for a while. Inside the longhouse, the world feels smaller and quieter. The fire burns steadily in the center of the room, and everyone stays close to its warmth. Someone is repairing a wooden handle. Another person is working with wool. A child sits quietly nearby, listening to the adults speak. There is nothing urgent to do. The storm has made the outside world wait. And perhaps this is one of the rare moments when Viking life feels almost peaceful. You watch the flames. They rise, then fall, then rise again. The sound of rain against the roof becomes steady. Tap, tap, tap. The rhythm is almost like a lullaby. After a while, the conversation becomes quieter. Someone begins telling an old story. The words move slowly through the warm room. It is a story about a distant journey across the sea. About a sailor who followed the coastline for many days. About cold winds and strange islands. About nights spent beneath unfamiliar stars. The children listen carefully. Their imagination carries them far beyond the walls of the longhouse. But you remain beside the fire. You can feel the warmth against your hands. The smell of burning wood fills the room. Outside, the rain begins to weaken. The wind becomes softer. Eventually, only a few drops remain. The clouds begin to move away. Night approaches. One by one, people prepare for sleep. The fire is reduced to glowing embers. The room becomes darker. You lie down beneath your blanket. The wooden floor is hard, but your body is tired enough that it hardly matters. You hear someone breathing nearby. You hear the final crackle of the fire. Then silence. Outside, the wet ground reflects the faint light of the moon. The sea is calmer now. The storm has passed. You breathe slowly. In and out. The longhouse feels warm around you. The ancient settlement is sleeping. And as your thoughts become slower, the distant sound of the waves begins to fade. Everything is quiet. Everything can wait until morning. For now, you simply rest. The night is deep now. The storm has completely passed. Outside the longhouse, the air is cool and still. The wet ground reflects the pale light of the moon, and beyond the settlement, the sea moves gently against the shore. Inside, the fire has almost disappeared. Only a few glowing embers remain. You can feel the last warmth of the flames on your face. Around you, everyone is sleeping. The longhouse is quiet. No footsteps. No conversation. Only the soft breathing of sleeping people. And the distant sound of water. This is the Viking world we have traveled through tonight. A world of wooden houses and open seas. A world of farmers and fishermen. Of craftspeople, sailors, parents, and children. A world where almost everything required patience and effort. Food had to be grown or caught. Clothing had to be made. Homes had to be built and repaired. Fire had to be maintained. And every winter had to be prepared for. The Vikings were remembered for their voyages, their ships, and their warriors. But most of their lives were much quieter. Most days were filled with ordinary things. Work. Family. Food. Weather. The changing seasons. And the simple search for warmth and safety. Imagine standing outside one final time. The settlement is sleeping behind you. The longhouse glows faintly in the darkness. The boats rest beside the shore. Above you, the stars are shining. The northern sky feels enormous. You hear the sea. One wave reaches the shore. Then another. Then another. The rhythm is slow. Steady. Almost like breathing. You take one final deep breath of the cold air. Then you return inside. The warmth of the longhouse surrounds you. You lie down. The blanket is pulled close around your body. Your eyes become heavy. The fire gives one last soft crackle. Then it becomes silent. There is nothing left to do. Tomorrow will bring another morning. Another day of work. Another sunrise over the fields. Another journey toward the sea. But tonight, you are safe. The ancient settlement sleeps. The wooden boats are still. The animals are quiet. The fields are covered in darkness. And the sea continues its endless journey beneath the stars. So let your breathing become slower now. Let your thoughts become quieter. There is no need to imagine anything else. Just listen to the waves. Slowly. Gently. One wave. Then another. And another. The Viking world is becoming distant. The longhouse is fading into darkness. The fire is disappearing. The voices are gone. Only the sea remains. And as the waves continue softly against the ancient shore, you can let yourself drift deeper into sleep. The night is peaceful. The world is quiet. And somewhere, more than 1,000 years ago, beneath the same stars, the Viking settlement is sleeping too. Good night. Sleep peacefully, and let the ancient sea carry you gently into dreams.